welcome to the Reading Rivers. I am your host, Styx, and today I am reading Close Encounters of the Turtle Kind by Bemna on AO3. Summary states, Tim was prepared to face a lot of assorted, customed weirdos during this drug trafficking investigation. He was not expecting to stumble upon a ninja turtle. Mikey was just stealing, some groceries, doing his thing, getting food. Wait, is that Red Robin? Published 2024, completed 2024. Chapter 1. There was something Tim had learned during his long career as a prolific vigilante in America's crime capital. It was that stakeouts were a lot more boring than movies made them out to be. As he watched the windows of an incredibly big and luxurious penthouse, also a very empty one, as it had been for the last 6 hours, his hand reached towards the small bag of trail mix hanging from his belt, when instead of the expected bland snacks his fingers graced the bottom of the bag. He couldn't help but sigh heavily. Red Robin, still in position, no change, he murmured, tapping the comm in his left ear. There was a brief burst of static before Oracle's voice came and answered him. Maybe it's time to call it a night, Red Robin. I can't, he protested. The shipment came in today, and this is the only place he could hide it in. I just need to catch him in the act. Instead of Barbara, another very familiar voice came through the comm. Yeah, you've been saying that for the last 3 hours. Tim rolled his eyes. Nobody asked you, Hood. Hey, you know the deal. I let you take lead on the case, and I reserved my right to make fun of your fuck-ups. Like you wouldn't do it anyway, Tim muttered under his breath. Then he raised his voice. Just focus on your side of the operation and don't blow it like you did last week. Oh? Started Jason. His tone was light, clearly amused. Fighting words, Chatter in the comms, guys, Barb drawled, clearly bored of their bickering. Yes. Tim knew that using the encrypted line to argue wasn't very professional, but he had just spent the entire night in position waiting for a perp that wasn't coming, so he felt like he deserved one last dig before letting it rest. If Hood hadn't... However, before he could finish, his words got stuck in his throat as he noticed something moving inside of the house. Immediately he felt his body tense, the lightness leaving his frame as he changed positions, picking up his binoculars to focus on the closed window. He zoomed in. The apartment was still completely dark, but there in the dark shadows, it was almost as if... Red Robin? Oracle called, now a lot more serious than before. There's someone inside, he said, slowly. They didn't come through the front door. He quickly switched to heat vision, trying to verify that this wasn't just a case of pet sitting or an unexpected stray. The first thing he registered was the size of whoever was inside, and it was a who, too big to be anything else. The second thing was that the image didn't seem right. It was too cold, and the shape was strange in some places. Were they wearing some kind of power armor? Except it wasn't just that, it was also the temperature. The way it almost didn't register in his heat scanner. So, what was this? It didn't seem like Mr. Freeze at all. It could be some kind of stealth suit, or maybe... We have an unknown possible meta in Wilson's home, he relayed to Oracle as he put the equipment away. Methods and appearance are outside of the usual suspects' MOs. I'm going to do some more recon to make sure they aren't a threat. I'm on my way, said Hood. His tone was low, all business. No, replied Tim, already moving to the fire escape as he pressed the button on his bow, extending it to its full length. If you're part of the drug operation, I don't want to lose this lead. I want to do this as quickly as possible and not scare them off. The moment you get over your head is the moment I'm calling the cavalry, Oracle allowed. It was nice that she was trusting him on this and not immediately snitching on Batman, but also, it sounded halfway like an order, and this was supposed to be his case. Hood backup aside, of course. Oracle's tone left no room for argument, though, and Tim knew when to pick his battles, so he simply shrugged it off, swinging with his grappling hook towards the building. "If you get the shit kicked out of you, I'm gonna laugh at you forever," was Hood's unhelpful contribution. Of course, everyone ignored it. "You said the ammo was strange," commented Oracle, the sound of background typing coming clearly through the comms. "Whoever this is either has their hands on some kind of cloaking technology or should be dead from hypothermia. I considered Freeze, but this isn't like him." "He's also in Arkham at the moment," Oracle replied, "so probably not." He slowly descended from the rooftop, rappelling towards one of the windows without letting himself be seen. He hit the comm twice, signaling to his teammates that he was going silent before taking a better look at the penthouse. With the way that this home was bathed in darkness, the fact that Tim has memorized the layout of the building was very helpful. He was looking through the living room window, which seemed to be empty now, but there was very faint light coming from the kitchen. Unlocking the window and silently letting himself in was child's play. He did so in complete silence, noting how strange it was that no sound was coming from where the possible meta was. He had to take this seriously. It could be more difficult than he expected. He carefully made his way towards the open door of the kitchen, putting his back against the door before peeking in. Unfortunately, the angle didn't let him see much, just a small wisp light and illuminated the kitchen tiles. No sight or sound of his suspect. He rolled inside, drawing his weapon and bracing himself for a fight, only to stop in his tracks when he saw them. Whatever he had been expecting wasn't this. A giant humanoid turtle, dressed in some kind of fighting gear and armed with a pair of nunchucks hanging from their belt, looked at him with wide, surprised eyes. They stood in front of the open fridge. That was where the light was coming from, wasn't it? Arms filled with food and a half-eaten chocolate bar in hand. The origins of the food were crystal clear, judging by the multiple open cabinets, and clearly looked like someone had been rummaging through them. Did he just crash in Atlantean? Strange random meta stealing food from this suspect? Before he could speak, however, the turtle person moved. He reflexively adopted a fighting stance, but the meta didn't move towards him, hitting the light switch instead. They stared at each other for a long moment before the meta's eyes lit up in clear joy. "Oh my god, dude," they said, clearly delighted. "You're Robin! Well, you're not Robin, you're Red Robin, but still Robin? I'm a huge fan, man. I love your whole thing. It's super, super awesome." The moment the kid had started talking, Red Robin relaxed slightly. He hit the comm, muttering a quick false alarm developing situation code before muting it. "Oh, you're a fan?" he asked in the standard tone reserved for potentially friendly interactions. He didn't fully relax, of course. The kid was clearly a meta, and he was armed. He was either trained or had some enhancement that made him more stealthy than normal. On the other hand, this was clearly a kid. Probably 14, 16, judging by the voice and behavior. He seemed cooperative, so there was no need for overly threatening. "A fan? Of course, you guys are awesome. I mean, you're not my favorite Robin, no offense. My favorite Robin is Cool One, but it's still so nice to meet you," he gushed, shifting on the balls of his feet from sheer excitement as the food in his hands threatened to fall to the ground by excited, aborted twitches of his arms. Then he seemed to catch up on his own words, and he blinked, looking a bit sheepish. "Not that you're not cool, dude, you are. It's just that I prefer the other Robin, but you're my bro's favorite, so don't worry." Tim, who hadn't felt offended by the statement at all, his pick as the best Robin wouldn't be himself after all, Dick was clearly the superior choice, simply smiled. "Oh, you have a brother?" he asked politely. It was a good opening to start getting some information on them. "Do the two of you live here?" The way the meta's face scrunched up in confusion was an answer on its own. "No? Dude, this is like a whole house. Do I look like I can live in a house? I mean, it would be cool, but the moment the house seller person met me, they'd be like, 'Oh no, that's a green monster!' And they, wouldn't sell me the house because they'd be too busy passing out or running away. Happens a lot." The picture was starting to form itself clearly in Tim's mind. I guess the screaming and passing out thing happens a lot when you go out for groceries? He asked, gesturing with his head at the food that the meadow was holding. They looked down, seeming to have forgotten what they were carrying before groaning loudly. When they lifted their head again, they looked at Tim nervously. "Oh man, right. You're a superhero and I'm stealing, I guess," they said, biting their lip. "I can't let you catch me, but I don't want to fight either. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Well, I guess I'm kind of a fighter, but I don't want to fight superheroes unless in like a friendly spar kind of way." Tim took the note of asking more about the weapons and possible training later. First, he should address this and reassure the meta, though. "Listen, you can't keep doing this," he started, keeping his voice firm. "I can see that you're only stealing food, so I'm not gonna have you arrested. The rest of your family are visibly metas too, right? This is why you're resorting to this?" At the meta's affirmative nod, he continued. "This is not the solution, though." "Dude, we don't do this as a hobby. We need to eat," the meta answered, slightly offended. Maybe it was time to de-escalate. "Look, I don't think I caught your name." The question seemed to be enough to bring back the meta's good mood. "Mikey, my name's Mikey," he answered happily. Too happy. It was kind of weird how much that question seemed to have cheered him up. "Mikey, then. You said you didn't live in an apartment, did you? I know homeless shelters are difficult for metas," he started, and now that he was saying it, a hurricane of very alarming thoughts assaulted his head. Oh, this was a real nightmare scenario, wasn't it? A family of visible metas would be a prime target for traffickers, and handfuls of good shelters in Gotham wouldn't be equipped to deal with that. God, how had they survived this long? Being unnoticed must be part of their abilities since they didn't seem like a new situation. Though maybe it had only recently moved to Gotham. Mikey did seem to have a New York accent. Maybe they had run away because of that. He would have to get Bruce's help for this, didn't he? "We can help you," he finally said. "We'll explain your situation to Batman and..." At this, Mikey seemed to freeze. "Oh, dude, I cannot," he said, shaking his head. "Don't worry," Tim tried, fully putting away his weapon and lifting his hands in an appeasing gesture. "I'm trying to help." Mikey chuckled nervously, taking a step back. "Sorry, Red Robin. You know, I think it's super nice how you named yourself like a restaurant. That's a really neat way to choose your superhero name. I hope one day you give me your autograph. One for me, other for my bro, who's your super fan." He rambled nervously, but Leo would freak out. "Rule number 1 is do not get caught by Batman. He'd give me so many lectures. I cannot stand that many lectures." "Alright," Tim conceded, changing tactics. "I can go with you. You can introduce me to your family and we can talk. It's out." Before he could react, the meta moved, throwing a projectile towards him. In reflex, Tim pulled out his weapon, deflecting it. It was a mistake. The fast, precise strike of his bow broke the bag of flour flying towards him, enveloping the room in a white cloud. When the dust disappeared, he was alone again. He stood there, his mind brimming with thoughts. He was only pulled out of it when he heard a faint beeping from his comm. Oh shit. Jason was going to have a field day, wasn't he? Chapter 2. Let's preface this by saying that Jason was not a crime lord anymore. That part of his life was over. He didn't make every criminal working on his alley pay him any sort of fee, and while he did still control what kind of crime was permitted within his territory, it was a matter of what he turned a blind eye to and what he went after with an extreme prejudice, instead of directly having every criminal follow his orders. Despite this, the fact that he doesn't act like that anymore doesn't mean that he was like any other vigilantes in the city. He mostly does his own thing, stays in Crime Alley unless something big is going down or someone asks for backup. Now, a lot of people will always say that Jason's way of working is a lot less efficient than the alternative. The others arrest a lot more people, get fame throughout the city, and, well, they get called in more than him. That's true, but that's not the main difference. It's not the fact that he doesn't follow the Bat's no-kill rule either. Ask Huntress what she does on certain criminals. What sets him apart from the rest is that he's present. The bats and the birds stay in the shadows. They're almost mythical figures, more legends to the city inhabitants than tangible, real people. Even the other vigilantes can't be as grounded as him, needing to keep a careful distance to balance two lives without arousing suspicion. Jason had lost his life, so he had a lot more freedom than anyone else. He kept his identity secret, of course, but the fact that he didn't have to juggle a civilian life with his duties meant that he was present as he wanted to be. He was there, close to the ground. He was another neighbor in his turf, and every homeless kid and criminal knew it. They talked to him more than they did any of the others. Crime Alley was his, by right. The stray, unwanted thought that was this was way that Bruce talked about Gotham was easily ignored because Jason is not the same. He's not. What did this mean, though? Easy. Every other vigilante had a wider area of control. Too many things to focus on. When someone was as much as breathed wrong in his territory, Red Hood knew. So, on a random Wednesday night, some gang members were planning to beat up a few kids to force them into joining. Red Hood was there. Therefore, when a meta kicked their asses instead, Red Hood was there. Honestly, he caught the kid mostly by luck. He was fast, tugging to the shadows almost like Cain, like he was born in them. 1 second the gang members were threatening a group of street kids, and the next they were groaning in pain and inside the dumpster. Years of training with Batman himself were what pushed him to follow the vague shape that had managed this feat in the darkness and jump into the fire escape where he managed to point his gun at them. The green that had been creeping into his vision without him noticing vanished the second he realized who he was dealing with. Some sort of turtle meta. Fighting gear, weapon, a bright, colorful mask. The mask wasn't orange, though, and the physical description didn't exactly fit the kid that had kicked little Timmy's ass, with fucking flour of all things. But that kid had a brother, probably same age, or younger. Another meta kid that had to steal food to survive, a kid he was dangerously close to shooting. Instantly, he put away the left gun, the one he had loaded with real bullets. He didn't holster the one with the rubber bullets, though, just moved it to the side to make himself less threatening while raising his right hand in a universal peace gesture. Because what the Pretender hadn't explained is his frankly hilarious report was that they were dealing with trained meta-assassins. Child soldiers. Green tinted his vision once again, more focused this time. He had to find whoever raised these kids. Whoever had forced them to go through the kind of training he and the demon brat almost died to completely, only to throw them away. He had to maim, hurt, tear, kill them, kill them, kill them, kill them. He breathed deeply, letting the thought pass before speaking. He had to focus, get more information. He couldn't let himself get carried away by this. "Sorry for the scare, kid. Thought you were someone else," he said, keeping his tone light and easy while staying in place, avoiding any kind of sudden movements. It was mostly the truth, too, since the kid had used some moves eerily similar to the League's. "You're Mikey's brother, right? Outfit gives it away," he added, gesturing to the kid's mask. The moment the name slipped from his lips, the kid immediately tensed. Where he previously seemed ready to flee, he turned firm, tense. His eyes, which had been training the gun's path, where it was aiming at the wall, focused instantly on him. They looked strange, deep red and black framed by light purple, making the uncanniness of them stand out even more. Oh, hey, another member of the Weird Club. It clearly wasn't the time to make that kind of comment, though, since the kid moved, jumping back slightly to get some distance between them, and pulling out a wooden bow, adopting a defensive stance. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked. His voice was soft, but with a clear threat behind it. No good. He knew from personal experience how dangerous it was to corner someone who had almost nothing to lose. Fortunately, he knew how to deal with scared kids. Violent kids, mistrusting ones. He saw them every day around here. If he had managed to earn the trust of the Crime Alley children, he could do this. He stepped back too, holstering the remaining gun and lifting both hands. Easy. He met Red Robin the other day. Vigilantes talk, you know, and, like I said, matching outfits and all. With this, the turtle's frame relaxed slightly. Of course he would. Jason heard him mumble under his breath with a sigh. Then he tilted his head, giving Jason a half-smile. He did say he met Red Robin, but he talked about his awesome cape. He didn't mention that he told him his name, the kid explained, now visibly more at ease. Jason smiled under his helmet. Right. Great trick. I'm a big fan. At this, the kid frowned slightly, in clear puzzlement. I thought you'd be angrier about it. I know you all work together a lot. Jason snorted. And I thought you'd run away the moment you got the chance. I'm curious by nature. It's my biggest flaw, I guess, the kid replied, with a shrug. I get that, Jason accepted with a nod. I'm also kind of curious about you all. There was a moment of awkward, heavy silence, and some of the lightness in the kid's stance was gone, but since he wasn't running away, Jason pushed on. The kid had mentioned names being probably a no-no, which meant that unless he offered, Jason wouldn't ask, which left. I know you've been getting food from some assholes up in the rich neighborhoods, and after what I saw you do today, I know you can keep yourself safe doing it, but do you have a good place to sleep? He asked, skipping the pleasantries and going directly into the matter at hand. Or are you all going rough? I have a few spots in my alley. It'll be safe for you. Just say the word and I can set you up. The kid blinked, puzzled. You know, I was expecting a lot of things, but not that. Jason raised an eyebrow. What were you expecting? Mostly anything involving you calling Batman on us, he drawled, casually, like his brother hadn't run away at the mere prospect of encountering the old man. Seems like the most logical next step after finding trained metas in his turf, so to speak. No, Jason cut in curtly, voice slightly hoarse and harsher than he meant it. I won't be calling Batman on you, if you don't want to. It's an open offer, no pressure, no one else has to be involved. The kid had been sincere when he told him he was too curious. Jason could see the silent question in the other's eyes and felt his hands turn into trembling fists by his sides. To his credit, instead of pushing, the kid decided to move away from the topic. Well, thank you for the offer. I can really tell you that it probably won't go anywhere, but the intention is appreciated. Anything for the kid that pulled one of the funniest wins over Red Robin. He got all pissy after it. It was hilarious. Instead of the expected smile, the kid pursed his lips. You know, from what I've researched, Red Robin has the biggest track record on arresting criminals in the field without engaging in direct fight, which is objectively the best way to act if you want to avoid property damage and civilian casualties. Oh, holy shit, right. Wasn't Mikey's brother's Tim's superfan or whatever? That was kinda cute, to be honest. He wasn't gonna burst this kid's bubble by telling him about the time Tim was so distracted that he confused the shampoo bottle with mayonnaise and smelled like potato salad for 3 days. I have another question, Jason said, instead of shifting subjects. Your brother won't get in trouble, right? He seemed worried about that, he commented, lightly keeping his tone casually normal. He knew how to do this, how making a big deal of things like this would only make kids clam up. Oh, he will be, the kid said with a snort, making Jason's blood freeze. And so will I, honestly. Leo's not going to like this. Jason carefully tried his best not to outwardly react as he felt his teeth clench. He would remember that name. This was surprisingly pleasant, the kid said after a beat, but I doubt we'll meet again. Even if you do have good intentions, we're not really fond of your connections, and we prefer to keep things safe. We'll be fine, though. You don't have to worry about us. With that, the kid disappeared into the night. Jason didn't move to follow, didn't try to plant a tracker on him. It wouldn't work, wouldn't help the kid. He really wanted him to come back, though. Chapter 3. Damien tripped. He shouldn't have. He should be better than this, but the clock was ticking down. His movements were already impaired, and his senses would soon follow. Distant shouts and gunfire followed him from behind, his movements regrettably too slow to let him lose his pursuers. Blood was pooling on Damien's leg. Too much, too bright. He had gone through enough training to know that, if left untreated, this wound would be fatal. The most frustrating part of it all was the fact that he had failed. It was absolutely infuriating that despite not truly wanting it, all of his predecessors seemed to fulfill Batman's role as a protector of the innocent much easier than him. So much effort to take what was rightfully his, and now he was failing, in the most disrespectful way possible, against some lowly scum that had taken a cheap shot while he was shielding some civilians from an explosion. A bang, a loud rumble, and then a metal beam had fallen, piercing his leg, making him stumble. He couldn't have dodged. His costume had reinforcements. It was a lot sturdier than the Batman onesie that child behind him had been wearing. His ears were ringing now, and part of his costume had been blown off, including his comms, and, judging by the lack of backup, his tracker too. Then the bullets came down on the injured Robin. The civilians. They would be all right. The gunman had decided to follow him and left them alone. Damien probably wouldn't be. A stray thought flashed through his mind at that moment. His brothers were terrible pet owners. Who would take care of Alfred and Brutus and the Bat Cow? They'd get spoiled to an unhealthy degree if he perished. He couldn't die. He wouldn't let himself end like this, but his vision was already blurring, and most of his weight fell on the rooftop's bulkhead as he pulled out his weapons, waiting as his pursuers closed in, their forgettable features lighting up with excitement as they surrounded him. He had tried his best. It should have been enough. No, it would be enough. Just as he was bracing himself for a hard fight, a dark, deep shadow descended behind the enemy. Before he could help himself, a word escaped Damien's lips. Fav. The moment the figure took a step closer into the dimly illuminated roof, however, Damien realized his error. This wasn't his father. It also wasn't Richard, or even Kane. The figure was big, looming over his attacker the same way Batman would. But it wasn't human. A meta. One of the turtle metas father had been looking into. "Never heard of picking on someone your own size?" the meta asked before jumping into the fray. The meta's movements were faintly familiar. Damien had a lot of experience watching the League's operatives, studying their techniques, and the meta's movements reminded him of that. There were still some clear differences, though. Where the League's style had a lot of influence from different cultures and time periods, the meta seemed more regular, focused only on one fighting philosophy. Despite this, there was a clear pattern of intent, the same one that had followed during his years as his mother's pupil, the same one Kane had mastered. Todd had been right. They were dealing with assassins, skilled meta-assassins. The turtle moved between the enemy with ease, brutally twisting their side to break weapons and limbs alike, with some sort of violent glee he was familiar with seeing in Todd. Dealing with the enemy was taking longer than it should, but it seemed that the turtle enjoyed playing with his opponents, exchanging ridiculous taunts as they fought. But despite his annoyance, Damien could recognize a great opportunity when he saw it. The moment the thugs turned their back on him to deal with the new threat, Robin pounced. They fought in parallel, more as a team, not truly engaging in any joint maneuver or even communicating. Instead, they simply took care of being out of each other's way. Even then, the criminals stood no chance. Together they made quick work of them, but while Damien was disposing of the last one, he saw the turtle attempting to sneak away. As if. Unlike Drake and Todd, he wouldn't let the unknown slip from his fingers. These were not simply civilian metas anymore. They were dangerous. Father was interested in meeting them, and since they were uncooperative... As he finished tying the enemy up, Damien paused for a single second to throw a batarang when he saw the turtle trying to jump the roof. Damien couldn't help but click his tongue in annoyance when the meta deflected his weapon with a sigh, flipping it around to catch it with their right hand, and landing on the edge of the rooftop with a neat practice backflip. "You really want to do this? Right now?" the turtle asked, raising an eyebrow at him. There was some challenge in his voice, and he had a faint smile on his face as he lazily twirled the batarang in his strange three-fingered hand. "It would be for the best if you simply surrendered and let me escort you to Batman, but if necessary, I will use force to achieve this." The meta snorted, his smile becoming slightly sharper. "Really, Pipsqueak? I saw you limping all the way from—" He stopped mid-sentence, lifting his face slightly in the air. It took a moment for Damien to process what he was doing, but it was a gesture he was familiar with seeing in Brutus. The meta seemed to be sniffing the air. They must have an enhanced sense of smell. He should add it to his report. Before he could comment on this, the meta jumped. Damien unsheathed his sword in a quick upward slash, but the meta caught it with his sai, twisting it out of his numb hands. It clattered across the roof, far out of reach. He had been slower than usual. Dark spots were starting to fill his vision. "Damn it, brat, stay still," the turtle muttered, clearly annoyed. A sharp and encompassing pain shot up Damien's leg as the turtle grabbed it, making him fall. The meta was holding him still now. He was too strong for Damien to fight in his injured state. He was vulnerable in front of the enemy. A sharp feeling climbed up his gut as he thought. His heart beat loud in his chest, picked up even more. "Unhand me right now, this instant," Damien hissed. The turtle ignored him, too focused on what he was doing. A mistake. Adrenaline shot through his body, the fog crashing over his mind, lifting for a moment. Damien reached for his belt, and quickly as a snake, he sank a batarang into the turtle's arm. He slashed through skin and muscle, dragging it deep and far as possible. His breath trembling, clumsy fingers forced him to let go. At first, he didn't react, still messing with Damien's wound, which made him wonder if the turtle hadn't felt anything at all, but once he stepped away, he turned his head to Damien, a shocked, flabbergasted expression on the turtle's face. "You little shit!" he shouted, yanking the weapon out of his arm before grabbing Damien's shoulder and shaking him. The movement was small, not too rough, but Damien felt his world spin with it. "Next time, I'm letting you bleed out." Letting him? Damien's eyes fell on his injured leg. A mess of bandages covered the wound. They were slightly tainted with red, but the bleeding had clearly slowed down. It was far from professional, more a rushed first aid job, but it might help Damien until Father arrived. Damien's mouth felt dry, his eyes twitching for a second to the meta's injured arm before he shook away, crossing his arms. "Your work is adequate, but I do not require more assistance. We shall wait here until Batman arrives." He would tell Father about this. The turtle, he had helped him, even if it wasn't necessary. Instead of graciously accepting the truce, the turtle rolled his eyes. "Yeah, right. With all the effort I went through, you're not gonna bite it here, brat." Without an explanation, he stood from a kneeling position, putting a strange, clunky phone from his belt. He waited for a few seconds before speaking. "Hey, quick question, Don. How's blood loss on humans?" "More specific? I mean, like, for how long, how much, really?" He paused, sending a dirty look towards Damien, who glared at him in response. "Humans are so fucking delicate, I swear. Quick question, where's the nearest super goth?" "No, not happening. I'll be back late, though. Come on, Donnie. If you don't tell me, I'll swear I'll—" He was paused before the turtle sighed. "Okay, good." With that, he hung up, and before Damien could react, he grabbed him and put him over his shoulder. All the goodwill Damien had felt instantly evaporated. Who did this filthy meta think he was? "Put me down, you foul beast," he shouted, trying to twist out of the hold. "Yeah, whatever, brat," was the nonchalant response. They spent the trip like that, traversing the city across rooftops and alleyways alike, as Damien shouted vicious insults and threats that the turtle reacted to by displaying only amusement or faint annoyance. Fortunately, Damien managed to draw more blood with the knives he had in his belt, so at least he'd had that. This went on for what felt like an eternity until he felt the turtle under him tense. Immediately, Damien stopped struggling, got quiet. His back was turned backwards, whatever had made the turtle react, and he hadn't let Damien turn far enough to see anything. Damien opened his mouth to ask what happened in a low hiss. Before he could, a familiar voice echoed across the empty alley they had landed in. "Put Robin down now." Damien knew who this voice belonged to, but it was usually warmer, more cheerful, instead of the cold steel that now echoed across the street. "Easy there, Big Blue," drawled the Meta, putting one hand in the air while the other still held Damien in place. "I don't want any trouble. I'm just giving the brat back. Found him like this." He still couldn't see Richard, but it was clear by the tone of his voice that he wasn't moved. "Then do it," was the icy reply. Damien remained still as he was set down, the turtle immediately retreating backwards the moment his feet touched the ground. A wave of dizziness hit him, then he felt himself swaying, but almost as if he had teleported, Richard was suddenly there, holding him, steady. Strong arms wrapped around him in a quick hug, and he heard a faint, "We were so worried, little bird," before he was maneuvered to the side slightly behind Nightwing. Annoyed, he tried to move forward a step, but Nightwing held his hand as his shield and ignored the glare he received in response. "Thank you for bringing him here," Richard said, now significantly more cordial and clearly relieved, his tone carrying the comfort and lightness Damien was used to. "I see that you're injured too. You could come with us, get some medical attention." "I'll pass," was a curt, cutting response. Richard twitched in place, like father. He wanted the turtles to come to the cave, wanted to make sure they wouldn't be in danger or hurt innocent people, but Damien could see the turtles tense, his jaw setting in annoyance, posture turning defensive. "Look, we just want to help you," said Richard, softly, kindly. "We don't need the help of some humans," the other practically growled. When Richard opened his mouth again, stepping forward, Damien grabbed his arm, stopping him. Richard looked at him, confused, and all Damien did in response was hold his gaze. After a beat, the turtle cleared his throat. He pulled out a single sigh, eyes fixed on the weapon as he spoke. "My brother, you know, the one, orange mask, annoyingly positive. You wrote a whole-ass dissertation trying to psychoanalyze him or whatever," the Meta drawled, his voice hard and unrelenting. "For some reason, he looks up to you," he revealed, motioning towards Richard with his head. "And I'd hate to tell him that instead of getting your autograph, I had to punch your teeth in, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take that little brat to whatever hideout you have, and you're gonna leave us the fuck alone." His eyes shot up at them, then challenging. Damien wanted to respond, whatever to drag him to father, but his attention fell once again to the turtle's shoulder, to the deep injury he had made there. It was different from the other cuts he had left on the turtle. If he had been quicker, if he had managed to cut deeper, he could have gravely injured him, as it had been Damien's intent. He did nothing, and the turtle left. Chapter 4. Cassandra remembers that time when Barbara asked her if she found big groups of people uncomfortable. Maybe that wasn't the right word. Cass wasn't very good at choosing those. It wasn't wrongness, more like Barbara thought it would be too much for Cass. Overwhelming that it was. Cass had been new to the mission, new to her duty, and to Batgirl. Barbara had told her why she was worried. Cass had grown up in isolation, surrounded by violence. Maybe having too many people around her might be overwhelming. The answer she gave Barbara that day was no. Barbara was wrong. Cass didn't feel like that. Not trapped or nervous. She could see that she was safe, feel how every person around her was soft and peaceful. No calluses in their hands from weapon trading, not the short breath and narrowed eyes of someone about to jump, ready to attack, even when there was some of those around. One or two people that wanted to hurt others, that would try to do that to Cass, even if they could. She knew she was better than them. that she would win. The tightness in her gut, the wrong, painful feeling came in later, when the weight of the mission started to register. Cass had been Batgirl, and then she had been Orphan. That came with a duty. The bat she wore on her chest meant that she couldn't allow death, couldn't let people end or be hurt, not when she was around. Sometimes she failed. She wasn't beaten, Cass didn't lose, but she couldn't be everywhere. Gotham was too big. There were too many people. Cass wasn't faster than a bullet, and she couldn't lift a building. There were times where the failures was bigger than others, times where it affected the whole city. Gotham was used to disasters, but the people living there were still people. When a tragedy came down on it, everyone was hurt. Cass could see the pain in the crowds, how families walked closer than normal, trying to become tight units to protect themselves. Parents together holding hands, their knuckles went white and pushing their kids behind them. Tightness in teenagers' mouths instead of smiles, lonely elders looking down with so much sadness. Those were the times crowds became overwhelming to Cass. When this happened, she patrolled more. She flew above the city, fixing as many things as she could. She fought, ruthlessly, for the safety of everyone, without break. 4 days ago, Firefly burned down a chemical plant. The explosion made windows shatter, cars and buildings break, and the people. Orphan went out into the city in a never-ending patrol until she was benched. The rules were to leave the suit home, but she couldn't. She didn't want to stay in the manor. She had tried, had ended up in the cave training until her fist bled and Alfred had been disappointed. He hadn't told her, but the curl of his mouth, the look in his eyes, had been enough. Still, if she got into a real fight, she would be found out, so instead she traveled to her favorite spot. Everyone had one. Damien's was a big building with stone statues. They had a name, she knew, but Cass couldn't recall it at the moment. She'd have to ask later. Tim liked the one by the water tower, and Steph loved to stay above the burger place she found funny. Duke usually went to the hospital rooftop, but his reasons were less happy than the rest. Hers was different. Cass doesn't think Batman knows just how much her father's training sunk into her. Of course he knows about the combat, the trouble she has with expressing herself, with speaking, reading, and writing, but he still doesn't get it. He thinks she's above it, that she's always been. Batman is sure that the training marked her, sure, but that she has always been better than that. She's always been good, deep down. He's wrong. She doesn't want to show him, but her mind screams at her every time she goes out. What's the best way to kill her enemies? Even when she's sparring with family. She has to choose not to do it. Choose to be a hero and try to help instead of hurt. It's not that she is good. She is not. There are some habits she can't shake off, and one of those habits is surveillance. That's how she found her favorite spot. Not just watching like her family does, from a good place to see without being seen and protect people. Her father's lessons push into her, finding the best place to wait and find her victims, to make a clean getaway after killing her target. It's close to the Central Plaza, where the street is filled with little trucks of people selling food and other things. She remembers getting matching bracelets with Barbara and Steph there. The Batgirl bracelets she doesn't usually wear because it would be easy to grab and break, but she keeps it on her desk, next to the mirror, so she can look at it every morning. There's a place there, just under where the rooftop becomes longer than the building. It leaves a spot, safe from the rain, dark and hidden where she could do anything to anyone in the crowd and then escape. No one will be able to react and catch her. But as she got closer to her place, she noticed that there was something off. She was on guard then. A shift in the air, a change in her surroundings were things Cass always noticed, so she could act, so she could defend herself and win. There was someone there. She couldn't see them from where she was, still too far away, too many shadows, but she knew. Her eyes were fixed on the dark as she got closer, keeping her movements small and stealthy. Then she pounced. She had been expecting Steph. He wanted to be alone. She wanted that too. She had scared him. Cass could leave him be, even if it was her spot. She jumped backwards, the turtle following her movements with his eyes until they couldn't see each other anymore. It hadn't been the first time she saw one of the turtles. There were glimpses around Gotham, from the first time Tim had talked about them. Colorful masks, metas in the darkness, flying through the city. Orange, purple, and red. Her brothers had said, but she seemed to be the only one that had seen blue. The discussion at the cave, there was a lot of theories from everyone. Dick and Jason had even come up with some major talk and worry about them. Something has to be done about them. All the bats' bodies seemed to shout at the same time when they talked about the turtles. Cass listened in silence. They weren't doing anything wrong, so if Blue wanted to be a secret, she wasn't going to tell. She was still curious, though, the way he had moved, how he had chosen her spot. He didn't speak Cass's language, the language of violence and movement, but it was almost as if he did. He didn't have the tells of someone raised to fight. He had a natural movement of someone born and shaped by shadow, almost as if... She had heard a name, Leo. Jason was angry at Leo. He thought Leo was the one responsible for the turtles, the one Jason thought had done to them that David Kane had done to her. Only instead of violence and fight, he had taught them to only live through shadows. There was a problem, though. When she came back to her spot to see the blue turtle again, he wasn't there, and he didn't come back. He was avoiding her. Well, if he wasn't going to meet her here, she would need to meet him. Cass couldn't find him easily, and he could slip out of her sight. That was proof he was very skilled. She had no doubt that she could beat him in combat. She could easily read his moves, after all. She knew more about violence and pain, too. But he was better at stealth than her, than the bats. All of the turtles were. From what her brothers said, Jason, Bruce, Damien, they were angry about this. Cass wasn't. It was kind of funny. She flew around the city, and whenever she found Blue, she would follow him, until the way he crossed the rooftops became scared, I need to get away. One time, however, he didn't run. When he saw her following, he stopped. His body was ready, serious. Again, he was waiting for Cass to decide if he had to fight. From where she was standing, a few buildings away, Cass raised her hand. Even from his distance, he could see how Blue got tense, expectant. She waved at him and felt herself smile faintly at the confusion that he showed because of that. He also felt uncomfortable, like a ballerina in the middle of a stage, like when someone was giving a speech to a big group of people, the same way Damien got when he showed Alfred one of his paintings. He raised his arm too, rigid, on edge, but he waved back. They waved at each other for a moment before he looked away, giving her a couple of nervous stares before he left again. Good. Slowly, with each meeting, Blue seemed to be better around her. He didn't tense anymore. He let her get closer, but not too close. He even waved first sometimes. Until one night, she found him in her spot. The first thing he did when she joined him was to wave. Tension going away when she waved back and didn't break the safe bubble around him by staying where she was, a few steps away. He watched her, eyes just a little wider than normal in his now familiar, "You're looking at me, and it makes me nervous," way, before clearing his throat. "Hello?" he said, voice faint and uncomfortable. "Hello?" She answered back, clumsily, like tripping. Cass swallowed. It was annoying how even if she thought her words perfectly in her head, her mouth seemed to fail. They went silent. Blue was waiting for her to say something, but she didn't know what. He had been the one looking for her, hadn't he? After a moment, Blue's body started to twitch. Small movements, only Cass could have noticed it, but it told her that he was about to do something, that he wanted to act. "You've been following me for some time," he said, still nervous, still uncomfortable. This was true, so Cass didn't feel the need to say anything about it. Suddenly, Blue seemed to become even more nervous. She hadn't done anything to scare him. He took a deep breath, trying to look firm, but, to her eye, clearly unsettled. "I was wondering why." Oh, he wanted answers. This was the hard part. She thought about her words carefully, about the way she would have to shape them. "I wanted to know," she started, but trailed off, trying to find the thread. How would she ask him about the violence, the shadows, and his David Kane, so he would get it? "About your family, and the training," was what she landed on. The frustration in her grew again. That didn't sound right. Not like she had wanted it to, but now it was done. The way he looked at her changed. His eyes got sharper, more hostile than she had seen after their first meeting. He was defensive. "That doesn't concern you," he said, his mouth twisting with unhappiness. The words had been a problem, and she could see it, felt angry at herself for it. She had attacked him without wanting to, pushed a sore spot, an injury still fresh. He was going to leave. It was all over his posture. He was about to turn away and stop their little hellos because she was clumsy. "Wait!" she exclaimed. She hadn't wanted to. "I don't know what I said wrong," she confessed, frustration clear in her whole body, angry and tight even in her voice. He froze. He was reconsidering listening to her. He was giving her another chance. "There's a reason we've been avoiding you all," he explained. "I won't answer those questions." He was still defensive, but different. He wasn't worried about himself. He found her presence less dangerous than her questions. So, information. Information was something that would damage what she loved more than violence or even death. She knew he didn't have a house, didn't even have money or things that people valued, but he did have was family. That's when it became clear to Cass. "It's fine. Your family, I won't ask. I understand. I will stay away," she said, trying to show her sincerity. It was the right thing to say. Blue relaxed, but as seconds passed and Cass didn't say another word, didn't move again, he became confused. He moved his feet under him slightly, like he forgot his script in a play, not knowing what to do. "I won't answer your questions," he repeated, not sounding less confident. Cass tilted her head. Yes, he had said that already. "If you know that, why are you staying?" he asked. That's what made him confused. "I won't ask, and I won't reveal you. I will leave your family alone, but—" She trailed off. How could she show him? An idea flashed through Cass's mind, a perfect idea. "Thank you, Steph." Before he had time to react, Cass moved. Blue's eyes widened, caught by surprise as he was unable to stop her, as Cass tapped his forehead lightly, saying one word. "Tag!" she shouted, before flying into the night. Behind her, she only heard silence. She slowed her race, waiting for Blue to react before going faster. When she felt eyes watching her, she looked back. There, still feeling lost, Blue was following her. Cass laughed as she went faster and faster. Hours later, they laid on a roof, looking up into the Gotham sky. They had been there a while, silent but comfortable. Cass liked it. She didn't feel the need to talk, didn't see the expectation to do it in Blue's expression. Then he said one word. "Leonardo." Cass sat up, watching the turtle curiously. He seemed nervous, like what he was saying was important. He didn't meet her eyes, still looking up into the night. After a beat, he continued. "That's my name, but you can call me Leo." Leo. The one in charge. The one that was trying to protect his family. Cass looked at him again, long and hard. Jason had assumed, and he was wrong. Leo was not their David Kane. He was another kid, one of the brothers, so young, but he had to protect them, even the people in the city. So much weight on his shoulders. And she nodded. "Cass," was all she said. Hi guys, this is the end of another very great, hopefully great video. I'm hoping that this one would have been out sooner, but it wasn't. So yeah, that was kind of my bad. But yeah, for my first one shot and second post of the channel, I think this one was actually pretty good, even if it took me forever. I've been having to deal with a lot of stuff at school, and I ended up having to stay back a year because I can write a fucking book, but I can't pass English class. So this was actually one of, like, my first DC TMNT crossover reads. Like, this was the first one that I read. It was great, actually. Like, I was obsessed with it for, like, 2 weeks after I read it. But here we are now in the big 2025, and I'm an adult now, so yay! Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story, And if you've read, or not read, sorry, I read, you listened this far, then I guess, tap a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for listening. Bye.